Hello, my name is Thor Olson, and I am making this submission for MVA 731, Managing Across Cultures, St. Ambrose University. This particular submission is over our discussion on Europe. In the 1960s, American presence, growth in Europe seemed to spark fire 100 years behind. By the 1980s, European direct investment in the U.S. outnumbered U.S. FDI in Europe. So that was a dramatic turnaround once they realized that the United States was growing in the world economically. By the 1990s, there were more European companies in the Fortune 500 than U.S. and Japanese companies combined. Some of the world's most respected companies came from Europe and still do. It seems by this info that Europe was very successful, but that they were kind of late to the game. But the fact is, Europe contributed to managerial thought and theory from its onset. In fact, the word management comes from England, specifically from the Wealth of Nations, written by Adam Smith, which many believe is kind of like the founding of thought of capitalism and modern economics, the invisible hand. And this actually makes sense because, this is the home of the Industrial Revolution, which can be seen as the origin of the processes that would lead to the need of modern management in our modern economies, based on these large production, these large global markets. It makes sense that managerial thought would have at least some origin, in the place where the need for modern management began. Other thoughts in this chapter, I thought it was interesting that there was and still is so much diverse political and economic theory in such a small geographic area. The basic tenets of capitalism come from this area, while at the same time, German philosopher Karl Marx introduced Marxism to the world out of Germany. It's just strange that so many diverse thoughts come from such a small area. Some of the most basic ideologies that govern different parts of the world come from here. And what's interesting is they're so close together, they have to work in concert with each other. It's kind of similar to the U.S. and their relationships from state to state, but it's different. Even our regions like the South and the North and the Midwest, they're very different, but they're still based in the same U.S. democracy and capitalism. Whereas these countries, they come from sometimes very distinct ideologies. And the fact that they operate as they do, I'm sure it's not a clean operation all the time, but the fact that they operate as they do, just it's a huge melting pot, I guess, of diverse culture that I wouldn't realize. And this goes for the same with the cultures in Europe. There's a vast array of different cultures, nationalities, religions in the small geographic area. You have Catholic nations, Protestant nations, non-secular, Eastern Orthodox, Muslim nations, and others. Economically, capitalism, socialism, just all types of mix in there. It just kind of struck me. In fact, the book even discusses that most of these nations can be considered having like mixed economies, with both private and government-owned businesses. And I think a lot of this is their origin comes from so many distinct places. And you have minority and displaced populations such as the Jews and the Muslims and the Gypsies, and this just adds to the diversity. I guess I just envision the European being just your normal pasty white guy, but it's just not the case. There's just extreme diversity in Europe, and I think it really has an effect on the economy and business in general, and relationships that are built there that are very unique, different than any other part of the world. Most of the rest of the chapter seems familiar in a sense, from the pay to vacations. Although there are some perks in Europe that would be nice. I wish they would apply them here. Extended vacation time, other things, maternity leave, that sort of thing. But in general, it seemed very familiar, very Western, what we're used to. And I guess that will conclude my discussion on Europe. Thank you.